Welcome to the Limit Free Life Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. I bring you tips, advice, and guest stories about creating work you love. Whatever type of career or business you have or want, I want to help you find more meaning, money, and happiness. Now we are live from Hollywood. Hello, and welcome to another Limit Free Life Show. I'm your host, Michelle Perkins, and I have a fabulous guest on today, Lorenda Phillips. Now, Lorenda I've had on before, so you can actually go back into previous shows and listen to the interview I did with Lorenda Phillips, founder of Retired from Sports. And Lorenda, I'm going to give you a brief bio on Lorenda, but what I decided after that show and after getting to know Lorenda over the past year is that she's super fascinating. She's also super fun to listen to and very, very knowledgeable about business and transition and a lot of the things that I talk about. And I enjoy talking to her so much that I thought you might enjoy listening to our conversations as well and learning from Lorenda. So I've decided that we are going to be two women talking business here, and you can listen in, and hopefully you will pick up some great tips and advice on transitioning and remaking yourself, building that business that you want, changing your career. And anything that you need, hopefully you'll be able to pull out some great nuggets from our conversation. And I think you'll really enjoy just listening to Lorenda. She is a wealth of knowledge. And let me tell you a little about Lorenda's background before we start. So Lorenda Phillips, MCC, is a master coach, and her team at Retired from Sports provide advisory services to current and former NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, and PGA athletes to discover, create, and execute their next game plan for retirement. Her team provides one-on-one coaching, consulting, and training, along with professional concierge services. Lorenda believes that players should I can't read without my glasses. That players should invest in themselves to secure their successful future. Lorenda, I'm sorry, I tried it without my glasses, but so welcome. I'd love for people to start listening to you and listening to us talk about business and transition and have some fun with this.
Yeah. So. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks so much for having me on. And I love the whole idea of two girls talking about business.
I do too, because we've had some really fun conversations. Yeah. And when I listen to you and I kind of observe the conversation, I'm thinking this would be fun. This would be a really fun way to do this show. So what I'd love is to have you on a regular basis to keep this conversation going, and we can hopefully get some feedback from listeners and see what it is that they'd like to hear as well and address some of those things.
Perfect.
So let's start at the beginning, because you had a very successful coaching business, advising entrepreneurs and business owners for quite some time. You've also had a career in sales, and you've had a corporate career, as I have. So we come from kind of a similar place. I think we have kind of that understanding of what it was like back then, and as corporate women earlier on, and now as entrepreneurs. And so we've both had kind of long journeys where we've learned a lot. And now you're into something new and exciting. And I love the fact that you made a transition rather late into this. And I love how unique it is. So I'll let you just describe a little about what you're up to right now.
Okay. About 2 years ago, I saw an article in Sports Illustrated. I think I might have told you this the last time, but here we go. And it was an article about an article that was written in 2009 by Pablo Torres in Sports Illustrated. And he said that 78% of all NFL players experience financial stress or bankruptcy within 2 years after their retirement. I could not believe that. At first, I thought, nah. That's too many. Right. I knew some were kind of crazy and blew their money, but no, I thought, oh my gosh, no, that's too much. And so I did a little research and I found out, wow, it's pretty accurate. And then I thought, wow, you know how to develop people. I mean, that's what I had been doing for 20 years, is developing entrepreneurs to do better over time. And so I just thought that while I'm around and all these good coaches I know are around, and they're struggling like that, I just, it was intolerable for me.
Mm.
So I started doing more research, interviewing guys and athletes and athletes and agents and the people involved in sports,
Mm-hmm.
professional sports, and found out that, yeah, that was the case, and lots of reasons why, lots of problems. They were very open in really showing their heart and showing what really occurred when they were released.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took it up as something I wanted to do. And so kind of it gets us to today. I've had several clients, and so and there's many a lot of their behavior, the athlete's behavior and character is wonderfully transitioned. It can transition in a pivot. So it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel or we have to reinvent a human being.
Right.
No, what they have is very marketable. They just don't have quite the tools to do that,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes some coaching. But similar to business owners,
Right.
Michelle, I think that's why you and I, have so much in common. Like we deal and have dealt with transitions,
Right.
with whatever kind of person it's been, and whether it's business owner, a corporate person that
Mm-hmm.
lost his or her job, or an athlete that has been released. It's a human being, that does not any longer have an identity or the same identity they had.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because we were talking and going over this, and I think we both kind of landed on the point at the top of the hill where the big deal here, at least initially, is a loss of identity. Whether you're an executive who's been, moving up the corporate ladder and are rather senior level and suddenly you're laid off, or whether you're an athlete. But there's something about athletes that I think we can all relate to because we know the passion, the hard work, everything that goes into it. It's so real and it's so intense. And when that person, they're so, and they're public figures often, so they're seen in a certain way. So not only do they see themselves that way, but everybody else is seeing them that way. And suddenly it can be over. And, I think we can all relate to how devastating that must feel. And it's similar to the executive or the business owner who's having trouble. But I don't know, somehow the story of the athlete hits home a little bit harder or more
I
deeply.
think it's the plunge to the bottom that's so difficult, that they're at the pinnacle of what they think is their career.
Right.
At football, 3.3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But don't tell them, oh, it's different when you're 65. At the time, for them, it's like, wait a minute, no more fans, no more money, no more girls, no more getting by things, no more getting in front of the line in a club. It just, you're not that other person. You're not that person you were 6 months ago.
Right.
Any longer. People don't return your calls. It's devastating. And and yet it is very similar to anybody that's retired, anybody that's or lost his or her job,
Right.
In whatever fashion. It's just devastating. And
Right.
so I think that as coaches, Michelle, if we can kind of identify some of those issues that they're feeling and help them bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to be.
Right.
Which
Right.
I think is a big part of our job.
And of course, at that point, a lot of people, all of these groups, they don't know who they want to be because they've been something that they were so invested in, they couldn't see beyond that and didn't have time or energy to think about that or interest. And so now all of a sudden they have to, but they haven't given that any thought. So that gap that you just mentioned of where you are versus where you want to be, where you are, you're not really liking it, and you really don't know where you want to be. So there's a lot of work there.
There is a lot of work. And sometimes what I do is I'll say, okay, and I kind of do use this model a lot, Michelle. I say, all right, this is where you are. Tell me where you are. Well, I'm angry. I'm disappointed. I don't know. I don't. I don't have a foggy idea, or they may have a little idea, but it's not extremely realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But they might have a little idea, but for the most part, they don't. And they what they explain is really their emotion
Yeah.
at this point. So it's good. It's good to know that too.
Yeah.
And then where you want to be is, in they'll just tell me right up front. They'll say, "Well, I want to play football." Like, well, you're not playing football anymore. You were released. Nobody's picking you up. And so that's, I think, part of the first thing to realize, right? That it's no longer.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a little bit of time. It's just not, they can, and this is why I think the brain, I know nothing about neuroscience, but I think that's why the brain holds on to it. Like somehow it's a pathway. It's a neurological pathway, and they can't quite shake it. And I have recently coached 3 executives in the last 6 months. And the same thing goes with them. They just hold themselves still as an executive in a position that they know. Mm-hmm. And especially in a firm, all 3 were in a firm for a long time. Mm-hmm. And at around, one was 55 and 2 were in their early 60s.
Right.
Same issues. And this is such an identity loss. Like they don't know what's next.
Right.
So that's why it's a hard thing to talk about. Okay, where's the gap? Well, here you are here, and where do you want to be? But that's kind of where to start is like, where do you want to be? Like, what do you want to feel like? What's the systems that you want? Do you want an 8 to 5 kind of work? Mm-hmm. Do you want just to kind of get started?
Right.
Do you want to invest your money and do you want, and make your money that way? Do you want to go in business for yourself? Do you want to go into corporate? Mm-hmm. Do you, and for the guys, do you want to go and look at what opportunities there are in your field, like in high school or college or pro? Mm-hmm. Some can go into media. So those are the questions too to ask. Some go into motivational speaking, because I've done a lot of work as to what these guys do. Right. And some go on the road and talk to corporations about what it takes to be the best.
Right.
And so it's kind of a combination of questions and, well, no, Lauren, I don't want to do that. Or, oh, I think I'd be really good at that. And they, and maybe they're not showing how good they are at something, but they want to. So it occurs to me unrealistic. Mm-hmm. So I'll just ask questions and say, well, are you willing to do this? Are you willing to do that? And it gets me and them in a plan, a kind of a dance card, if you will, about what they will and will not do. Mm-hmm. No, I won't do the foxtrot, Lorinda, but I'll do some hip hop though. It's very loose. I was so much when I was working with entrepreneurs, it was not as loose because they knew what their gap was, right? They wanted to continue their business, but it was almost always not enough business, right?
Right.
This is different. This is like the whole world got rocked.
Yeah.
And that's why I find it so wonderful. In that this is the thing I really do believe. Let's just start here. I really believe that it's fabulous that they have the opportunity to completely rock their world and do something completely different or the same, but they're at choice. They could be at choice at what they want to do. And they can use this opportunity to recreate themselves to what's next.
Right. And
yeah,
you and I agree that moment in time, I think when we talked about it before, we talked about it as the in-between time.
Yes.
And people see that as a giant negative. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm out of work, or I just, my athletic career just ended. For them, it's an ending. Initially, for most people, not everybody, but a lot of people will see it that way,
totally,
and it feels devastating. But the beauty of it to people like us who have a different mindset around it is, yes, it was amazing while it lasted, and it was a great experience, and you learned a ton, and you had an amazing time. But it's not the end. And there's something else out there that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's easy to say, right? It's easy to say. I
Yeah.
love that you said something like that. But this is the thing for me, and I think for you too. I mean, I changed from sales and sales management to coaching. That was a huge change. Huge. I mean, I was very successful in sales,
Right.
and then coaching, and oh my God, was horrible at earning money as a coach. In the very beginning, and then it just rose. I just rose with the interest in coaching.
Right.
I was available, and I had a master's certification, so I was pretty qualified, and had a lot of sales experience. So I used that initially, and then I just really worked hard at getting to know business, right, so that I could coach at all levels. And but then, I mean, here I am, 2 years. I'm like, I pretty much have very few business coach clients because I'm just not marketing there. And now I'm in a whole different market. So,
Right.
so for sure, I've changed 3 times, a big way.
Right.
And I really do believe, and I'm kind of an optimistic person, I must say, but I really believe I'm better. I'm better. I'm happier. I'm really now being of service. For me, that's really what I want to do. I want to alter how I've had things, and how I've had things has been great.
Right.
And highly successful. It's just that for crying out loud, I want another life.
Yeah.
I want more. So that's what I think for the guys too. I think for the 2 executives, just quickly on those 2 executives, well, 3, but 2 that I'm thinking in mind right now is, 2 of them one was 60, one was 62. Okay. And they just said, Lorena, that's it. They're not going to hire me. That, I have evidence. I've been out here for a year looking for work, all this, right? And I just said, I really request that you alter your conversation, that you create a new context for how great it is to be 62 and looking for work.
Right.
I
love that.
They said, are you kidding me? Like, are you really kidding me? I'm like, no, please. And we started there, and we created a network, and we created places for them to go and talk to other people, and always to be positive, not to go into like the rabbit hole of how bad it is, or how hard it is, or how ageist it is, or how doesn't matter.
It's a huge rabbit hole. Yeah.
Boo, 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 boo. And it's amazing. Only one of the 3 does not have work, but the 2 got really good jobs.
Oh, I love that.
Really making the money they wanted to make, with a company that's so much better, because guess what? They're a certain new type of person. And that now is a better match for them. The company both of them went to, different companies, obviously. It's a better match for them.
Yeah.
So they feel like they're totally won.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway,
a year at that level that's kind of normal for probably the salary level they were at, for the time it might take, not just to look for a job, but to go through a lot of that introspection and figuring out what the right next move would be. That takes some time. It's not like you just you throw your resume out there at anything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and they did that, right, without even being ready themselves.
And that
but
doesn't
they
work.
Thought that that's the thing to do. All 3 were men, and it's just kind of like, get the resume out, get the blah, 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 and all 3 had worked for their company for a long time, their companies for a long time. So they didn't even know what a good resume looked like.
Right.
So we just had to, it's all good, because that meant that there were lots and lots of gaps that they had, so that we could who told you to write the resume this way? Well, I did it 15 years ago. I'm going to do it the same. Well, maybe not. Let's just take a look at some other resume like that. So, and I play with them, and I kind of make fun of them too. And it's all good, because, I love them.
Yeah.
Really, I know that's sappy, but I really do love them and want for them. But I know that what they've done in the most recent past has not worked.
Right.
And anyway, so there's that with the.
I do want to say I love that you said you love them, because I think the best coaches really love their clients. I know I do, and you get very attached to them and their success, and you want it as badly as they want it, and sometimes more when they're feeling like over it. So
Yeah.
you're the one that keeps them
Yeah. And
moving in that direction.
and then bringing it to the guys, the younger guys,
Hmm.
they're 23 to 28. Just talked to somebody. He worked for 1 year. 1 year.
Mm.
And this is the thing about these guys. They're the best in the world at what
Hmm.
they do.
Right.
The best in the world. And after millions of kids going, in most of their careers, they just don't hop into pro,
Right.
right? They've been playing, many of them, for years and years and years since they were kids.
Right.
So they were always the best. They were always the best, first in the class, as it
Hmm.
were, first in the class in the team.
Hmm.
And then to be kicked to the curb, and that's really, I got that phrase from one of them, and I'm like, oh, it must sound like that
Hmm.
or feel like that.
Right.
And he said, yeah, yeah, it does. And they really truly feel at that age that it's over.
Hmm. Yeah.
They had their opportunity. It doesn't even matter that it makes sense or not. They
Right.
just had their opportunity, the best in the world out of millions of guys, and it's now over. And I think they have some time, and I think the older gentlemen and women that retire as well, there's got to be a little bit of time of that, of grief,
Yeah.
about it, like the loss of something. And I think I agree not to really step over that. I don't want people to wallow,
Right.
for months and months, but to really look at, what kind of go through a grieving process.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Because I think for both of us, our goal is to help them see how they can come up with a new identity,
yes,
whatever category you're in. I mean,
yes,
this goes for stay-at-home moms who are going back. I mean, this goes for so many different people in different
right,
situations. But if you don't go through a little of that grieving period and really spend some time with your feelings and what's going on and processing what just happened, that's really not the time where you want to be out there interviewing for something new. I mean,
that's
you want to
exactly right.
get past
Yeah,
that. And
yeah. And also, it may not be, I mean, you may have a partner, right,
mhm,
who can handle that grief, and he or she may also have grief,
right,
right, that
right, for sure.
there's that grief because the more money, or we go to a
Yeah,
cocktail party and you don't even know what to say, you do, like that. There's not, like, there could be grief on for partners as well.
right.
um but it needs to you need to go through it,
Yeah.
those stages. And it's anger, it's denial, it's anger. And when it finally comes to, after you do a little work, it comes to acceptance. And I lost my husband 2 years ago,
Mm,
and I understand.
yeah,
I
right.
only knew myself after 35 years of, Lorinda and Howard. It
Hmm.
wasn't really Lorinda, it was
Right.
Lauren and Howard. And so I totally appreciate the identity
Mm,
issue that
right.
happens when people move on to another position, so for
And
whatever
that's a good point too, because our identities can be lost and refound from a number of different, situations, or as a result of a
reason.
number of things. And so, if you learn how to go through this process and rebuild your identity, and learn that it can be something new and amazing in a next version of yourself,
Yeah.
that translates. You'll use that knowledge and that
Yes.
skill in the
Yeah.
future when it hits again, because inevitably things happen.
Yeah.
So,
I was thinking of the guys, that they know themselves as a running back,
yeah.
right? I'm a running back for the Dallas Cowboys. Okay. For the executives, I'm a director, or I'm an executive, or
Hmm.
SVP, or
Yep.
a C-suite guy in my company.
Hmm.
That is what they identify with.
Right.
And
Right.
so there's like also kind of a shame to go through,
I,
because that identity really raises them up, like in the world.
right.
Like they have a very cool position in the world.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then going back to the athlete, then it's like, well, no, I'm a former Dallas Cowboy.
Yeah.
Well, that still gives you something,
Yeah.
but nothing. Nothing like it does. And I only know that because the guys have told me, like,
Hmm.
well, I used to get people that return my calls when I meet them, and now they don't. And I'm like, yeah,
Right.
that's what happens, because you don't have your identity, and they don't have the relationship to that identity anymore.
Well, and
So
what I see is that is a great a, a great thing to have on your resume. And the fact that you were a former professional athlete, I mean, how amazing is that, and how
oh,
few of
it,
you are there out there.
it
So
is
it's
exactly right.
not that, but you just don't want to lean on that. That isn't, I mean, I see people going forward and still calling themselves a former whatever, whether I have
Right,
former executive, former, a television producer, whatever it is.
right, right.
You're not your former. I mean, that's a part of your experience and your resume. But
Yes, yes,
so, but they do that, I think, because they don't know who they are next.
that's
So
exactly right.
they're
Yeah,
still leaning on that. And
that's exactly right. And they don't, their titles, their
yeah.
even even like names, like my name at the gym is L Dog. I mean, please. I mean, anyway, oh my God. L Dog. But they don't have that camaraderie thing as
Right.
much. That's
Right.
all. It's just it's not every day at the gym. It's not, and it's certainly not the structure anymore. So this is
Mm-hmm.
another problem they have besides the identity.
Right.
They don't have a structure or system, neither do the executives, where they, I don't know what it is, but get into the office at a certain time, have the Starbucks, have the meetings, then go to a luncheon meeting, then have that the team works out problems at 3 o'clock every day, whatever. They
Mm-hmm.
lose that too.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
that's so important because that having no structure for an extended period of time when you're used to structure and you're used to being,
crazy.
busy and needed and everything else, that can take you down a road to some depression as well pretty
Very
quickly.
bad, exactly. On bad
Yeah,
habits.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, and the other thing I was thinking about the guys too, they cut home. They're now then home.
yeah.
And so the
So the wives are
spouse
going
has
crazy.
deal
Yeah,
to deal with
yeah,
this other person,
yeah,
decision maker, person with a point of view.
yeah.
I only like their point of view 2 days a week, not 7. But there's all that transition
Hmm.
that's happening when the client, our client is wrestling. It's
Hmm.
wrestling with his identity and what's next, and all of that.
And that can actually scare other members of the family as well.
Oh God,
And,
yeah. The money,
yeah,
you
can
know
make
when
people very nervous around you, and that energy isn't really helping you because if you're already feeling shame or guilt or whatever, and then you've got other
yeah,
people actually worrying.
and I think it's all of it. I mean,
Hmm.
the two of the guys of the three that I've recently worked with that are executives, two have amazing egos, are very strong men.
Right.
Okay, you would never know that there was something going on,
Hmm.
but I had to kind of shake them down because
Yeah.
we weren't getting anywhere,
Right.
and it was because they weren't really fessing up to me. And I said, look, I'll never tell your names, I'll never say anything to anybody. It's you and me, that's it. But if you don't open up to me, I can't help you.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it wasn't even therapy. I mean, not because I'm not a therapist.
Right.
It was really how they hold themselves to be. And finally, and as soon as that happened, that's what I'm kind of using this with my guys now, is that as soon as that happened, we were able to move.
Right.
Because the truth was told.
Right.
It's like, oh no, this is where I am.
Hmm. Hmm.
I love when you said shame. I'm ashamed. I should have done this. There's so many should haves.
Hmm.
It's crazy.
Yep.
And yeah. And so because I have two different types of clients,
Right.
they're different in some ways, but they're similar in
Hmm.
some, and mostly men too. I mean, all
Hmm.
the athletes are men, but
Right.
mostly the executives are men too for me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that.
Well, and I have, I think, a pretty 50-50 mix of
Oh, you do?
men and
Okay.
women in terms of
Yeah.
executives and business owners. And I do see some differences, although at a certain level less. And I do think what you're talking about, the ego issue can definitely prevent people from moving forward, and they do
Yeah.
have to break
Yeah.
through that and open up and get honest. And again, that process at the beginning before you even think about that next step is in part to just get really honest with yourself. I mean,
Yes.
and that's hard. I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's
don't want to
really
look at some of the things that you need to look at, but that's, the grieving is part of it, the looking at yourself really honestly, all of these things are so crucial before you really begin to
yeah,
think
yeah,
about that
and
next step.
altering your mindset. Like,
Hmm.
it's you're not, well, for the young guys, they're not 18 starting in.
Right.
And for the older guys, they're not 25 starting in.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, so it's the same thing. It's like, no, you're here.
Hmm.
You're in this place.
Hmm.
And that's a great thing.
Right.
Think of what you've learned. Think of what you have that you have in, that came over time,
Hmm.
automatically,
Right.
or that you were trained in. Like a lot of the executives have been trained, and that's, and also players in their
Yeah.
physical training.
Right.
So, and both, well, for sure, the athletes in mindset. I mean, the athletes, they go after something 110%. Don't tell them they can't do it, because they will.
Hmm.
It's just that is they've grown up with that mindset. Now, but it's funny because it's on the field.
Hmm.
It's
Right.
not necessarily in their lives. So not only do we have to do with all kinds of emotion, it's also their mindset.
Hmm.
So it's what I kind of started out with was, let hallelujah, this is what's happening to you
Hmm.
now. This
Right.
is what this is the opportunity for you.
Right.
And that's a big mindset thing. But there's a lot of, a comparison to them, to other guys.
Right.
And all that stuff, Michelle, that really, again, takes you down the rabbit hole and not really dealing with what's so.
Hmm.
And the great things about what's so, for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's just so many crossovers and with the different
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah.
So it's so
Yeah.
interesting. Um, and but I think what you brought up earlier about people feeling like, oh my God, it's over. My dream job, whatever that might be, or my dream business, it's
Yeah.
just ended. I think the really crucial thing here is to recognize that something ended, but your career isn't over. And that's a continuum. I mean, it's going to take a lot of different forms. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is that with sports, going into it, it's not going to last forever. But I don't know. I
I
guess,
don't know. You're absolutely right. The rational person says it's not. It's going to end.
right.
I'm telling you, there's a kind of a myth bubble
Mm, mm-hmm.
around sports, and that is because they want the guys to think they're invincible,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so nobody wants to say, well, not quite invincible. It'll be 3.3 years. Now, more and more people are starting to say it, so I think it. But right now, it's still kind of um, a little bit fantastical thinking.
Yeah, yeah,
On
and I hear that too from executives or even business owners who things end or things change, and most of them will say, "Yeah, I probably should have started looking 7 years ago, or I probably, should have recognized what was going on, or
Yeah,
something."
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And what I just to kind of switch a little
yeah.
bit, what I so I really do like the guys to go through kind of a grieving process, the
Hmm.
steps,
Right.
but then also really start looking. When you buy a new car, you buy a white car, let's say, then you start seeing all the white cars everywhere. It's
Right.
like, oh my God, everybody's driving a white car,
Hmm.
right? Or, I bought a gray car,
Hmm.
and I always thought they were all black, but no, there's a million grays now. There's a
Right.
million grays. So what the point is that, you start looking at what you want, and it starts to kind of build on itself.
Hmm.
Like, for instance, like, networking.
Right.
Like if you kind of go in with, well, this is what I'm looking for. I'm a former athlete. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that. Just kind of like a researcher,
Hmm.
kind of a little bit what I did, before
Right.
going into this, and going to networking events and going to places that other athletes will be at, or other people in the industry or just businesses.
Right.
A lot of these guys end up owning their own business. So going to chamber meetings, going to those fundraising meetings
Right.
that they're invited to, and they don't have to go to all of them. Just go to all of them.
Yeah.
And, and start, having a game to
Right.
meet 3 new people. And then say, I'd love to talk with you next week. Can I call your office on Monday? Nobody's going to say no.
Well, and I love that you're telling them to make a game out of it, because that's
Yeah.
something they'll be able to do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I also have a plan for them. Like, we create a plan, and I call it the game plan.
Yeah.
Oh my God. As soon as it's game plan, they're like, okay, what, Lorinda, what do we do? How do we do it? So they know how to read a game plan. And when you think about football, but any sport, they also know how to change the plan on a dime.
True.
Between the huddle and the actual play, they're talking to each other in some kind of language.
Right.
Not a language. I don't know what it is. To change what they said in the huddle.
Right.
So they can, and they're like, no, it's P next, 1735. And there is a playbook like this thick.
Yeah.
So they know how to move.
Right.
Quickly, and maybe not the first 2 games of the year, but by the 3rd game, they know what the heck they're doing, and they'll risk their limbs to have that happen. Right? That's just who they are. But anyway, but back to networking, they, people like to be around them. They have no idea what their star power is. They have some idea, but not fully, like what the business community would like from them. It's just they just have no idea their own leverage ability.
Well, and hopefully they start getting some kind of positive reinforcement by getting out and networking, and they get starts to build their confidence in terms of what they might be able to be part of.
And especially when they work with coaches, then it's kind of like, okay, what did you do last night? Well, I met this person and this person. Okay, and then did you ask for an appointment? Oh, I forgot to ask for an appointment. Okay, good. So then the next time it's like, okay, did you ask? Oh yeah, I asked this time for an appointment. Great. Okay, and then it's kind of step by step, lots of failure, but step by step, that they move forward, and then there's a momentum that gets built.
Yeah, right.
I think. Oh my God, Michelle. I think when I was worked for the phone company when I was 15.
Wow.
I knew nothing, in high school, obviously, and in the summer. I knew nothing about business, right? I knew nothing about protocols or how to dress, or I just knew nothing, who to say yes sir to. I knew nothing. I knew nothing. And I built that because I lived in that world, and I know you did too. And we developed ourselves over time in that, let's just say, narrative.
Right.
And these guys don't know that narrative. And it's just a matter of a few tweaks and, well, tell me what you said, and, to get them up to speed.
Right.
So they're in the business world, using business language.
Right.
Using their thinking ability. Because this is the other thing. These guys are smart, and they're treated like they're not. So interesting. They have been skated through school, but that's because they were, they were practicing all the time, and they took advantage of that opportunity.
Right.
Now the problem is, this is not all of them. This is some of them, and then sometimes it ends up biting them, at the end.
Right.
But they can catch up.
Right. Of course.
And when they're 25, I mean, the interns, out of college and in college, I mean, they're not that far behind, and they're way ahead in terms of character, and what they can do and how they work with teams. And there's all kinds of stuff they can bring to the party that guys that are their counterparts, age-wise, they have no idea about. So I know I kind of went round and round there.
No, it's really interesting. Actually, I was just doing a workshop talking about confidence and the importance of that, and just as a foundational piece to going out and making a change. And we were discussing just how you build that confidence. And Despite the fact that their athletic career might be over, they've there's been a lot of work on that, I would think. So
Oh,
they kind of
oh,
have a
yeah.
leg up on that.
Yeah,
Uh,
you cannot show that you're frightened or you don't understand or you don't know. You go in
hmm
with that focus, laser focus, um, to whatever your job is in that moment, in that
hmm
play.
Right.
That is what you do.
Yeah. And so that's very transferable in terms of a
Oh,
skill set.
it's yeah, that's what I meant by there's just a pivot.
Yeah.
If they just knew how to pivot, they really could. It would just come flooding in, like, oh my God, this is what this guy can do to our organization or for our organization, or
hmm
oh my God, I can do this as my own business owner. You
Right.
know, they need help as a business owner, but all business owners need help.
Yes,
So
exactly.
it's not like they're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, that's the really funny thing about being an entrepreneur is you can have business training, you can not have business training. It doesn't matter. You're still going to need help. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And some people are really strong at some things,
hmm
and just horrible
right,
at some others.
right.
And as a business coach, as business coaches, we know pretty soon where the holes are,
Yeah, yeah,
where the gaps are.
right. Yeah, that is so true. So,
Maybe you shouldn't be gaming so much, Mr. X, during the day.
yeah,
That kind of
yeah.
thing.
Well, I kind of want to go back a little bit to that that kind of in between space
Oh,
and that feeling of it's over. I've had I've already reached the peak. I've had my best job ever. Because it depends on who you're talking to, but all of the even
yeah,
again even with the moms like. The highlight of my life is over. My kids have grown up now, and that's what I
absolutely.
lived for. And now I don't nothing's ever going to be, as fulfilling, as fun, as beautiful as that.
Yes.
So you can have that feeling, you know, in a lot of ways. Gosh, I can think of so many examples, but so I think that's a tough one. I think that, and I
Yeah.
think in your case, you're probably always dealing with that. Maybe there are some people who are glad to be out. I don't know, but
Um, Not yet as my clients.
yeah, okay,
I've read about some
yeah,
that actually left.
yeah,
And I know of one guy who never even went. He was asked to get into the draft.
okay,
He was a Stanford grad and he just said, no,
yeah,
it's not my life.
right.
It's not what I want to do.
But for
Uh,
those people who do feel like, wow, it's over for me,
yeah.
what are like the because I think no matter who you are, something can end in your career and you can feel that way.
Yes.
Um, what would you say are the kind of the starting pieces to, we talked about the grieving, and then what do they do to start moving, towards something?
Yeah. Um, I, I think everything comes out of community,
Mm,
everything. So I think that they should talk to their family. They should talk to their moms and dads. They should talk to a coach. They should talk to former players,
mm,
and just maybe a therapist. But I don't always think it's therapy. It's more talk to your friends and family. And some can't. Some don't have very good families.
yeah.
So maybe not them, but definitely former athletes are available to talk.
Mm,
So and even the marquee players are available to talk. Like they're not going to have the same issues,
yeah.
but they can definitely see that there were some issues. Like they might not have money issues, but
Right.
they have identity issues. I remember when Kobe, bless his heart, he when he did his Mamba Out speech, he said something at the end about, one of the things he's done for 20 years is every day he went and worked out.
Mm,
And then every day he did hoops,
mm-hmm,
every day. And it's the same thing. So he said, even I am going to have to reinvent my life.
mm,
And when he said that, I'm like, oh, thanks, Kobe. So my point is, these guys know, they'll be 1 in 5 that
mm-hmm.
know what it's going to take. And to
Right.
really, a lot of it is just getting gotten, like, yeah, man, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
You're you're right. It's like over.
Right.
I got it. Now it really isn't over, but right now I feel you.
Yeah.
I
In
went
this
through that same
moment.
thing
Yeah.
right now. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So that's one of the things is and then also get family that love you, that don't necessarily want a handout,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that really love you, who you are, and who you were, even while playing football, the kind of person you are.
Right.
And that's not going to go away
Yeah.
just
Right.
because the uniform went away,
Right.
right? So just hang around people who know who you are,
Yeah.
and they will remind you of who you are. So that's kind of a basic, but that's a base, and it's also safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't mess up.
Right.
So so anyway, that and then I would say, develop something like a list of what you're good at, and what you were like, okay, I really, at the frat house, I really know how to do a party. Okay, great. That's a plus.
Right.
Or I knew who to invite because I knew this person would like that person. Well, that's a great skill to have.
Right.
So,
Right.
and maybe it starts with, I give good parties, but then if you dig a little deeper, then it's that kind of stuff. You see, I was able to. I know I talked to one gal who, she used to sell used cars in high school,
Right.
college,
Right.
and she would have and she's darling blonde, darling, and she would have her boyfriend, who was a football player, and her go around to all the frats and say, hey, we're going to have a sale on cars. They made so much money, and it's just that they kind of knew there was a strength there about not just even selling, but getting people together.
Right.
Because they used to do
Right.
that, and then think, well, how can we leverage? How can we monetize this thing?
Right.
So that's what they did. So anyway, that's that.
Well,
And
I'm going to have to stop you because we're almost out of time. I know, went fast. So we're going to pick this up again the next time we talk. You'll come back on and we'll talk about this going further, because that was just like the tip of the iceberg in terms of, what you do in that dark moment when you feel like it's all over. And that was just very beginning little baby steps. And what I loved about what you were saying is you and I can see where this is going. They may not. They may be sitting there going, why in the world am I talking about parties? I mean, this has nothing to do with anything. And because they're not in a place where they can see. But it's that pulling the layers of the onion back and just compiling data basically at this point, so that
really good
you can help them start, threading things together and seeing a little bit of a different perspective, and remembering some of the things about themselves that they've forgotten because they've been living in that identity that doesn't really need this
and I feel like we're in a Quentin Tarantino movie when I start talking about the dark side, but it really is the truth. That I really appreciate some more time maybe in that.
Oh, for sure. No, we'll continue this, because I think this evolution of how you go from there to thriving and being like a raving success in something totally new, I think that's fascinating. I know it happens. I know it's doable. It's completely possible in all kinds of different arenas and industries and everything. But that journey, that's a cool thing. And I think it's really fun to unpack that and see how it's done.
Yeah, and I love giving people the opportunity to create something new for themselves.
I know. Isn't that exciting? Because we all want something new. I mean, as you and I move along, we want to keep reinventing, and there's no real time I can imagine when I won't want to be doing that.
Limit on that one.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So tell the audience how they can reach you if they would like to do that.
All right, great. Well, let me give you my phone number, which you can text at 310-413-8636. You can text. And then also you can take a look at my site, retiredfromsports.com. I have a survey. If you're an athlete, take the survey just to see how prepared you are for retirement. And then I have an ebook there you can take for free. So
wonderful.
Just check me out, and I'd love it if you did that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lorenda. Lorenda will be back in a future episode here, and we'll continue this conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. It's a pleasure to have you. And I'll look forward to our next conversation. And as for me, please reach out. Find my website, limitfreelife.com. I also have a free ebook on there on ways to help you figure out your next career. And you can sign up for that newsletter and that opt-in, the giveaway on my site. And you can also find the Limit Free Life show on Apple Music and Spotify and all the other platforms where podcasts go, as well as the Limit Free Life YouTube channel. And love having you listening to the show. So please let us know if there's something you would particularly like to hear. And we will see you next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And go out and make yourself a great career and a great life that you can love.